Hey there, family. Dr. Eric and
Today we have a wonderful guest speaker. We have Kelly Woodruff. He is our an associate instructor. He is Reconnective Yoga instructor. He is all around fabulous person. He's powerful, inspirational, thoughtful, energetic, vibrant, and never a dull moment with this one. He's always interesting, exciting. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. Of course, a special welcome to everybody who's in our RLC Reconnective Life Community. Also, a special shout out to those of you who are joining us on YouTube. Thanks for that. And then, as always, my hostess, my dear friend and colleague, Miss Cecilia Sams, and also with some backup support from Hannah Clavel. I appreciate all of you being here, and of course we welcome our life leaders, and so here we are. So we had a little snippet of music at the beginning just as a reminder, just to kind of just to remember that we're being brought together. That's what we're doing. This is about connection. I have already busted myself out to everyone in the group, and I'm going to do it again in just a second. But before I do that, let me just tell you a little quick bit about myself. I have been involved with the Reconnection for almost 20 years now. I met the work in 2002. I have been a practitioner throughout that entire time. I've also, as Cecilia said, I have been associate instructor when that was a thing. I taught all over the world with Eric, particularly for the first about 10 years that I was involved. I joined him on the road when we used to do, believe it or not, we used to do up to 45 weeks on the road a year, if you can believe that. I maxed out one year at about 27 weeks, about half the time I was on the road. I do own an architectural interior design firm in New York City, in Manhattan, and I still do maintain that business. I still do have an active practice. I, along with my dear friends and co-creators, Rob Koenig and Joan Fowler, was also one of the creators of the Living in the Frequencies program. And my big baby and my biggest sort of, I think, contribution that I'm maybe most proud of is that I am the founder of Reconnective Yoga and currently teach a Reconnective Yoga class, which we are getting ready to start again on October 23rd. I'm going to circle back to that in just a minute, but we're starting our fall series of Reconnective Yoga on the 23rd of October. So Cecilia just dropped a link into the chat. You guys can go there to register, and everyone is welcome. It's an open class, but I'm going to come back to that later. So the bust out for myself that I'm going to do with all of you, in the interest of full disclosure, for anybody who's seen me teach or been in the room when I've taught before, you know that one of the things that I always say is I can only teach from my truth. I can only share with you from my own personal truth, my own experience, and what resonates with me as truth. So in that vein, I want to just share with you that when I started preparing this, my material for this talk, I thought it was a great idea, right? Let's talk about the nature of connection. Let's talk about what that means. But as I started to go into it, I so quickly got into the weeds, as they say, meaning I was so quickly just overwhelmed with the scope and the breadth of the subject that I have a lot of notes. I have a lot of different directions to go to. But what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of let this flow organically, because this subject of connection is one that is so deeply, deeply inherent to us as human beings on so many levels that it's literally part of our lifeblood. It is what we need to survive. And so for me, whenever I'm approaching a subject with that kind of depth, what I think what I'm the most comfortable doing is kind of starting at the beginning, at the baseline of connection. So given that some thought, I was kind of thinking, like, what is the most sort of fundamental way that we as humans connect, right? And so my idea is that we connect through touch. That is our first and primary way that we connect, right? We connect one-to-one as infants with our mothers. And in fact, one of the many, rabbit holes that I went down was that all of the information now that exists about how that we as humans suffer if we don't have that connection at a very early age. If we don't connect at a very, very early age with other human beings, physically connect, the results of that are really monumental and unfortunately, in some cases, insurmountable. There have been studies that have said that there's been a deficit when we have a deficit of touch, that the developmental markers are all much slower. It can result in aggression later. All of these things that happen. But as I was doing this research once again, I found out something really interesting, that there's a new study out that actually says that our DNA, an infant's DNA, can be altered if they don't have touch, if they don't connect to other humans when we're infants. So, of course, being a reconnective healing practitioner for all these years, anytime I hear anything about DNA that alters the DNA, and it immediately perks up my ears, right? I immediately go, wow, what about DNA? What is it that changes? Because as you guys all know, we've done studies that we also show that the reconnective healing frequencies also can alter DNA in a positive note. So again, just a little something, we're going to sort of tick boxes as we go down the list here of things that we start to recognize really important pieces about connection. So there's the first thing that I thought was really profound, which is, so now we understand that not only can a lack of connection as an infant create developmental difficulties, but it may indeed alter our DNA. So hold on to that. Keep that in the back of your head, because this is just the beginning. So staying on this idea of touch, of course, we're going to come back to and circle back and loop through all of the things that we do as touch as we're coming back to, as we develop into adults and begin to make love relationships and all of the importance of the connection through that. We're going to circle back to that. But I just wanted to go to sort of the other end of the spectrum about connection, social connection. And sort of, again, paint sort of a bleak, dire picture of what happens when we don't have connection. So, and again, in thinking about it, I started to think about, well, what are times when people cannot really connect to other people? And the most blatant, sort of harshest sort of situation that I could think about was people who are put into solitary confinement in prison, right? So, you guys probably all know that it's considered in prison that the worst possible thing that you can do to a prisoner, the sort of highest form of psychological torture, is to put them in solitary and make it genuine solitary for an unspecified length of time, where there's no beginning, middle, or end. So the things that I found out about it were that it actually, right now, there's a lot of, again, you guys may know, there's a lot in the United States about prison reform. And one of the big movements in prison reform is to eliminate solitary confinement as something that's done regularly, that's only used in the most extreme cases. Because some of the things that happen, and I'm just going to read you a little list. So it says, medical research shows that this denial of meaningful human contact causes what's called isolation syndrome. So the symptoms include anxiety, depression, anger, cognitive disturbances, perceptual distortions, paranoia, psychosis, self-harm, and even suicide. And that prolonged isolation can destroy a person's personality and their mental health. And its effects may last long, long after the end of the segregation. So again, I just wanted to build our foundation here, sort of explaining how important contact is to humans, human-to-human contact. because that for me is sort of the baseline. Now, we could again go down another little rabbit hole and sort of think about, well, why maybe is it so important to us that we have these kinds of human contacts? Because, perhaps it's just the fact that as we developed, when back in the time when we had to worry about the lions and tigers and bears getting us, we figured out kind of early on that we did better when we traveled together in groups. And so then, we could start to self-select for people who came together into tribes, into groups of people for protection, for safety. So those people who did that naturally started to sort of self-select and became dominant. And so, not only socially, but perhaps even again genetically. So an evolutionary biologist might say that we're actually wired for connection. So we're wired that way. That it is literally in our DNA, because we were safer in numbers. There was safety in numbers. So again, I think that to build our foundation of understanding connection, we have to bring in all of these things, because the nature of connection is inherent to who we are as humans. Now, I know some of you guys might be thinking, I kind of see some of your faces, you're kind of going, yeah, we kind of know all this. And so what's the point of this? And how does this have to do with reconnective healing? And what is it about this and whatever? Well, I want you to stay with me for just a minute, because this is the part where I really started to get into the weeds. So our job as a human species is to propagate the species, right? That's one of our biological jobs, to do that. And we have recognized that works best in a group. So there again, we're built to connect. But at the same time, we have also been taught, or we have sort of come to the understanding that there's a deeper sense of connection that we benefit from. And that connection is the connection to not only to our own inner selves, not only to the person inside of us, to our inside, so that we are fully connected to our being, but also in that connection, that then allows us to move further past us and somehow, and again, I'm going to talk in just a second about the many ways we do it, but somehow move into connection to the greater, to the all. Because most of us understand that somehow we live in an illusion of separation. And this illusion of separation has driven us even more, I think, to seek out connection with others. Yes, it's biological, there's no question. Yes, it's developmental. Yes, and yes, it stabilizes us mentally when we're connected to others. But this, my bigger sense and the bigger topic that I've sort of started to crack open the door about here is that somehow this inherent feeling that we are separate has driven us to, has just driven us, let's say that, has been the motivator. So there have been a lot of ways that we have developed over our millennia to come back into connection with the all, so that we can sort of move through or attempt to fill that void that exists because of our sense or our belief or our understanding or this illusion that we're living in of separateness. So obviously, again, the first one is social connections. People have substituted social connections, be it in groups or in one-on-one love relationships, which, if this is the case, often doesn't work out well. But people have substituted their personal connections to try to fill that void or to eliminate that sense of separateness that we're all living in, this illusion. Other ways that have been developed over the millennia are religious practices, right? That's really what the purpose of every single religious practice that exists on the planet is, which is bringing us back into ourselves so that we can then move forward in this sense of dissolution or dissolving that illusion of separateness. So religious practices, I would say, goes everywhere from ancient shamanistic, native peoples sorts of religions through organized religion to today, prayer, even certainly things like meditation and yoga are all designed. Yoga, as everybody knows who's taken my class, yoga means union, and it's not just the union of within ourselves, but it's the union with the all. So all of these things, all of these practices that we've developed have been developed to try to help us move past this illusion of separateness. And the interesting thing I find about this is that this illusion of separateness, right? As we move into our spiritual practices, most of us are taught that the way to dissolve that illusion is to go within and to find the center of ourselves, which seems very counterintuitive to connecting in the world, right? Because again, think about all these practices, monastic practices, prayer, yoga practices, meditation, all of those are designed to bring us within, to quiet the mind, and to allow us then to move into this space of inner peace, interconnectedness, and sort of inner knowingness. Now, I'm going to take just a quick break because my dear, wonderful friend and co-host Cecilia has been throwing a few things into my chat here. So, Barbara, great question. Barbara had said, how do you think that the pandemic has played with this issue? I think that this pandemic has brought this issue to the fore for many, many people. You guys, I'm sure that you've all been reading or heard about all of the cases and the uptick that people have had, particularly last year when most of us were in some sort of lockdown of depression and anxiety and all of those things that happened when we were really isolated from one another. I know in New York City, they did a very specific study about people who are city dwellers because we can be very isolated living in our individual little cells. They did a very specific study that said, depression was on the uptick, mental illness was on the uptick. So I think that the pandemic sort of really points to this again, to this need that we all have of connection, be it biological or beyond. So one of the comments says, one place we lose our connection right away is the cutting of the umbilical cord. We should keep it connected to the placenta until it falls off on its own. I think that that's a fine thing, but I think that physical manifestation of disconnect is something that really goes to much greater. I am, by the way, just so you know, guys, I'm all for that sort of what would be considered alternative sorts of practices, such as that, non-forced births, water births, things like that, because I think that it really does help ease the transition back into this life. So thanks for that. Miriam, we could see that suffering and effects of isolation during lockdown and the fact that we stopped touching other humans outside of our families. Yes, that's exactly my point. For those lucky ones that have families around, how it affected our well-being. Yes, that's exactly my point, right? So I have actually been directed, I need to now just take a quick pause and say thank you and goodbye to our YouTube viewers who have joined us. You guys can always join us on the RLC on Facebook, and we would love to have you there. You can join the RLC and continue listening. Also, there's a link to subscribe to my yoga class which again begins on the 23rd of October. It always meets on Saturday at 12 noon, but if that's not a good time for you, don't let it dissuade you, because the classes are recorded and you receive a playback link on Monday or Tuesday for you to have and to use over the next whatever couple of weeks, or as long as you want to use it. So join us for yoga on the 23rd. Thank you for putting that link in the chat, Anna. And to YouTubers, thank you guys. See you soon. All right, for everyone else, we're back to this. So again, I think the pandemic has been a really good and clear example of what happens when we lose connection to others. My theory here, or my sort of my theme of this, or my premise, as they say, for this talk, is the fact that this connection that we seek with others goes beyond just our social needs, beyond just our genetic needs to be in touch physically, and really is born of this illusion of separation that we all may or may not live in. So that's sort of where I wanted to start with you guys.
Hey there, family. Dr. Eric and Jillian here.
Welcome, everyone.
And we're very excited about Reconnective Life, our first online global community. This is the most exciting way we've been able to get together since I founded the Reconnection. It'll be a place where we can do things together. We'll move into breakout rooms at times when that's appropriate. We'll have energy interactions and meditations and exercises. In other words, expect things you haven't seen before.
You are so charged.
Things
He is so lit about every new way we get to be together every day. Just be together. Let us just speak a little bit about what is going to be the shape of this community.
In this community, we can share and discover more. Here we can talk to each other, we can chat, we can learn from and about one another. Jillian, me, our life leaders, and you will be in daily conversation with you. Weekly, we will have Facebook Lives.
We will be with you every Wednesday. Sometimes it'll be just Eric. On occasion, it might just be me. Sometimes it'll be the two of us. It's all about giving you a way to look at the week living in the frequencies.
And in every fourth week, we will include a live Q&A, so we can talk about things that have been coming up for us, discuss back and forth, share, grow, expand together.
And the ever-growing library of content that has been created over 20 years that will be on demand for you. It will be on-demand content for you to view, enjoy, share again with your inner circle.
And monthly, we are going to have live Zoom retreats. We're going to bring in some exercises and experiences and things that previously we've reserved for our physical retreats, you know, when we were in the different location resorts and things. And we're modifying them so that we can work with these with you in your home, in your living room, in your den.
Put into the chat line, what is facility?
We're having these weekly Zoom in-depth Q&As.
Finally, we have a place and space to just define what does that really mean living in the frequencies.
This is something that is in all of us.
Everyone can do this.
It doesn't matter how many levels you've gone through or how well you know the programs. It's a community that allows us to recognize how interrelated we all are as receivers of energy, light, and information.
See you there.
Reconnective Life, living in the frequencies every day.